Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pharmaceutical Soccer. I am so happy to be here. Of course, I am with Valera Shabilla and Clay Trainum. Guys, we get to share together in this momentous, amazing victory that has happened here for Nashville SC. And I am so excited to be here for it.
Okay. Why are you so excited to be here?
Momentous. What
Guys,
makes it
the
momentous?
best thing, we get to celebrate such an amazing victory that happened.
Is this just
That is
because
true.
that you just got back from Salt Lake and, like, this is, like, a whole thing, or
No, guy, wait, I'm not even talking about the match. I'm talking about the button is removed. Ladies and gentlemen, the button is gone. The victory that we have been asking for and been claiming for, the button is gone. What else happened this week?
Nothing important. I'll tell you what though. I'm not gonna give you a weekend update. I'm gonna give you a week update. By that I mean Tuesday, the day this
Oh,
show released last week.
I thought he was just gonna say it wasn't gonna be very strong.
Also,
Right,
are we
right.
literally just both ignoring the button thing actually happening? You're
I
just
don't
both going to
care.
move on
What
from it?
what you just did is enough airtime for the button. We're all moving on. The listeners moved on. Let's talk about Arsenal Football Club winning against Real Madrid 3-0. How about those two Declan Rice free kicks? And how about Marino just putting it nicely? It's been so long since I celebrated that hard in my life. I was just sitting in my office alone. I was on a Discord with a bunch of people, and I was screaming so hard that the mic stopped picking up my voice. And they were like, "Why did you go quiet?" And I told them that I was celebrating really loudly. So Discord thought it was the best to mute me. That said, Arsenal will be coming up against Real Madrid on Wednesday, and I just want everybody's well wishes and good vibes to be sent towards us because
Anything to
Absolutely
not be
not.
yeah,
Arsenal on
No, your
Wednesday, right, Blair?
downfall is literally like because you've also brought it up on air specifically, you do realize Real Madrid is going to come back and beat you, right?
no, they're not going to. Then
I
that's
think
enough Champions League talk because the other two people on this show do not have teams in the Champions League. So move on.
I do not. I will say
I
that
have I have a team in a European competition. Thank you very much. So I don't even want to hear your shenanigans.
I have a team that won. I had 2 teams that won Saturday. But anyway, what I will say is I hope that Valera's right. I hope that we do not see Champions League Real Madrid, which is like has the reputation in the last 10 years for coming back from the dead when too many times. But it would be fun to see someone else different up there. So that and it'd be fun for Steven to not be able to claim the only Champions League in London anymore.
Don't worry, the song can change. The only team in London with 2 European Cups. So, like, we're still there. The song can still continue, which is something I'm very, very happy
Anyway,
about.
I'm all about the European Cup Winners' Cup. That's the only European competition that matters. And so that is all that I will acknowledge. As for my weekend, I actually wasn't at the game. I was at a ZZ Ward concert, which was a great time. Also, I'm not sure I would have bought those tickets if I knew there was a game that day, but I didn't know there was a game that day. So shout out to MLS whenever I bought those concert tickets. Uh, but I'm very happy that I had a 6 point Saturday with a 94th minute winner for Everton at Nottingham Forest and a 91st minute winner for NSC over RSL.
Are
How was your
we gonna
weekend, Steven?
make
You
fun of
always get
my
mad at us when we don't ask.
are we just gonna do it? Are we just gonna make fun of Yeah, we can't beat Ipswich, so that's fun. Chelsea, way to go. Appreciate that.
Oh, I was
Uh
just asking about your
Can't
weekend.
wait.
You didn't have to mention soccer at all. You could have said anything. You could have said, "I've gone to the theater because I'm a theater man," or
Oh, I
something.
did go
Yeah.
to the theater actually, but I went to go see a metal show at the theater at MGM National Harbor. So a little bit different than going to the theater, but if you have the chance to go see Spirit Box is dope. So go see them. They're very good live. Um, they're sweet. I
Cool.
appreciate it. Why are you trying to fast forward through my weekend update? I just had to hear about your celebrations of Arsenal and how it was the greatest thing ever. Yet I say one thing about my weekend and we're trying to fast
This is an
forward.
NSC show. Let's move on.
Oh, so geez Louise, this
We asked you about your
here
weekend. Now
no
it's
no no
time
no
to
no no
move
no.
on.
No, I have a beef with you too, 1000% that I still have to bring up, and I'm so glad that we're gonna keep. Why did you guys bring up just
That you're a
slanderous
Chattanooga
lies
fan?
about me being a Chattanooga fan specifically? Why did you do this?
We saw the tattoo you have, the circle.
Yeah, I mean, what are you talking about?
The
Yeah.
Tennessee logo?
No.
No. You know what you can do, Steven? Is the next home game you can come and show people that we were wrong.
Yeah.
So if you're just around, you can prove it at the next home game that you'll
I
definitely be at.
literally will come to the next home game just to prove you wrong. I really hope you understand this.
Uh, Sorry to interrupt this. I do have to give a couple shout outs actually. Uh, I was walking around the stadium on Saturday, and shout out to Derek for stopping me. He said he listened to the show, and he specifically said he likes the banter, which is what reminded me of that, because he mentioned specifically you liking Chattanooga. So, so I was like, well, at least that stuck.
We all know that's not true. It's
And,
fine. You can bring up lies all day long, but we all know it's not true.
and then my second shout out is to the person who really mispronounced my name and screamed it from very far away, and still like waved at me. I have no idea who they were, but hey, thank you for doing that. That was nice. Even though my name was not pronounced correctly, I honestly don't care. It was nice to get
If there's
shout out.
one consistent thing that's run through this whole show from the very beginning, it's the mispronunciation of people's names, like Lebo Meloto, which has been mispronounced on this show since the very start, and yet we still pronounce it that way. So it's the one through line we have.
It's very true, and I'm always here to mispronounce a name. That's for dang sure. I will always mispronounce something. But look, we're in good spirits. We're in a good mood. The button is gone. Nashville SC has gotten a win at home. While it was a very interesting performance, I'm not gonna lie. It was I would say specifically for one, this was a very entertaining match. I think there was a lot of things back and forth in between each team that made it a very entertaining match. But I'm curious, we always kind of do like we do this as a more overall in the first segment. What are the vibes from your end when it comes to this kind of performance per se? Because I'm kind of indifferent, uh, and so I'm curious where you guys are feeling at the current moment.
I think that this is the clearest case of demonstrating the extent to which the expectations have been raised for the season. Because a lot of people coming out of that match, they were happy to get a win, but there was a lot of frustration around it too. Now, I think, second half, I mean, really, first 20 minutes aside, in terms of performance, it was a decent performance. It was a pretty good performance that lacked the sort of cutting edge that you'd hope to see from Nashville in a match like that, a team that has two DPs. But if at the start of the season you were saying it's a home game, they win 2-1 late, you're like, all right, cool. I'm going to take that, 7 days a week, twice on Sunday. Like, I'm going to take that every time. And now it's gotten to the point where now this is informed by two games that they played well and didn't get a win. They lost directly before this. But the sort of vibe where it's not just 100% all positivity across the board coming out of that game is a clear demonstration that, like, expectations for this team have been raised. Like, that's a good performance, but you should have done better. You should have did better, with what you did, with the way that you performed. And I think that that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. I mean, players bickering with each other, people get really worked up about that. That means that they're being held to standards by each other. And that's what you want to see. You want to see competitive guys being competitive on the field, trying to make sure that you get positive results. Now, it could easily, I mean, it's a thin line. It could easily go the other way. But generally speaking, like, I think that's a good sign.
There's also, one thing I said on the show last week is that you don't want to create a narrative or a storyline for yourself where Nashville SC becomes this team that fold under pressure, or Nashville SC that becomes the team that can't finish the game. And going out there and being able to get a result, get a win at home late from a penalty, that's kind of defeating two different narratives out there. One, Nashville SC can't finish penalties, and two, Nashville SC can't finish games late. And I think that, in a general sense, that's not going to completely remove that narrative yet, but you do that multiple times where you get a couple more wins. And that was the one thing I said last week of, like, you just don't want to create a reputation for yourself where you either can't score penalties or can't win late. And being able to kind of get this performance, I think that kind of speaks for itself. And then I just want to say, from the fan standpoint, from the vibe within Geodis Park, I think this is one of the best this season it has been in terms of fans, because I think fans are able to see that the team is trying. And yeah, being frustrated from not finishing chances, it's a different frustration from not being able to create chances. And I think that's very evident every time you walk into Geodis Park. And even though the crowd wasn't large, I mean, I think they announced like 25,000, give or take, a couple thousand maybe from that. But overall, the crowd was engaged. And I think that's kind of what you want. And Clay and I were talking about this right before we started recording.
Yeah, that's honestly what I was about to say. So Blair got there for me. But what I would also say is that it's a good reminder that the core there's a lot of core players that are still in this side, that have been in this side for several years. And one of the things, like I put the "Don't make me tap the sign" thing on Twitter after that game, is one of the core things that Nashville's done the entire time it's been a pro team, is get that late goal and to either equalize or get a win. They kind of got away from it last year because they didn't do it as much as they had. That's the 34th time since 2018 that Nashville SC has scored in the 90th minute or later. That is something that they do and that they've been able to do. And I think that reminding the fans that these are potential results that do happen kind of adds to building that atmosphere. Because I mean, we were there in the early days when this was going on at First Tennessee Park, but we've seen it, at both Geodis and at Nissan. There are games when you feel that there's going to be a chance, there's going to be something there. You just have to dig down and keep going for it. And I think that having that engaged fan base throughout the second half, certainly more engaged than, I mean, I watched it on television, but certainly more engaged than I've seen it at other times this season. That is where it's decided by thin margins, and that's the difference between a win and a draw here.
I think it's one of the things that we talked a lot about during even Gary Smith's tenure. It's like a win is a win no matter at what instance it occurs and what happens. And I think this is one of those where, no matter what, the team got the job done, especially at home. And obviously, we'll talk a lot more in detail about the specific instances. But when you're looking for, when you're looking at a good team, this is one of the things that you expect. Even when the team is not performing at its best, they are getting the victory when the time matters and when the time counts. And they did that on Saturday, which is something that we have been waiting to see from this team specifically. And I'm very excited about that. We'll talk a little bit more in detail about the match specifically. Before we do get into that, though, I want to ask Valair, just because it has come through when it comes to Walker Zimmerman, just providing a quick update on his kind of recovery. I know there's been a lot of good news on that front, and I think we just want to share that good news here with everybody on the show.
Yeah, he's doing fine. He's able to get back to it. The only thing is, um, he's going through concussion protocol, and there's really no good sort of time indicator on that. It could be a week, could be 2 weeks, it could be maybe even later than that. The good news is, like Steven said, he's okay, he's stable, he's moving, through the protocol as you expect. It's concussion protocol, and that could take its time. And it's definitely one of those injuries where you want to be super safe and you're not going to rush anybody from concussion protocol for any reason at all. So we might not see Walker on in Seattle the next match, but I would hopefully. If everything goes well, I think maybe the match afterwards. But there is still a chance for him to be in Seattle. So, I think that's just good news for Nashville's captain.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy just because you look at that injury, and if he were to play again this season, I would be extremely happy just based on watching that injury and the fact that this is, looking to be the best case scenario in any way, shape, or form. We're very excited for that, for sure, and glad that it is all working out for Walker and Nashville. Speaking of working out for Nashville, we're going to talk about how Saturday's win worked out for Nashville, as well as some around the league conversation, as well as more talk about the schedule change and what happened. And we're going to do that next, right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer at Pharmasoccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. As always, make sure to go check out 615soccer.com. Great place to get a bunch of information, talk to a bunch of Nashville Soccer Club fans as well, just about stuff going on within our team. So please make sure you do check out 615 Soccer. A lot of great content coming through. So please make sure you check that out. Also, pharmasoccer.com. If you're looking to get some pharma merch, please make sure you go to that website. Would love to have in Pharma Soccer gear. Would love to have you in it. So make sure you go check that out. Anyways, Nashville SC getting the victory 2-1 against Real Salt Lake. Goals coming from Daniel Lovitz and Sam Surridge from the Nashville side. I think kind of the best way to start the
Steven,
conversation.
hang
What?
on. Hang on. Can you pronounce the name of the guy who scored for RSL? Just to keep the theme going. Do your best. I'll let you know if you did right or not wrong.
Please hold. I will let you know if I get this specifically right.
Oh, I thought you had it in front of you. I thought you prepared for
No,
this
I'm
show.
doing this. Dominic Marzik.
Okay. I mean, fair enough.
Dominic Mark Zuck? Is it Mark Zuck? What?
No,
Mark Zuckerberg.
Marchuk. It's not Mark Zuckerberg. It's Marchuk.
Well, I did try.
But
No, Valer, I pay attention. Like, I understand you don't think I pay attention to what goes on with this team, but I do. I understand what is. I don't always need a reference sheet to know what's going on. No, I did that
okay.
off from memory. But what I think we talk about this match in a very. I think we start with the first half because I do believe the first half of this match was a lot different than what we saw last week. We saw an extremely dominant Nashville first half, which kind of switched up, in the second half last week. This week started off a little scary from Salt Lake side. Salt Lake looked like the better team, at least for the first 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think we should start by saying this. There's not going to be a match where you dominate as a team for the entire thing. There are going to be moments in a match where the other team gets a little bit of breathing room and is able to do something. So, there's no very, very, very few teams ever go through that sort of 90 minutes of complete dominance. That said, I think Nashville SC, even before BJ Callahan, really, they have this thing where they started the match really strongly. Now that strong start could last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sometimes 2 minutes, and then sometimes it's a little longer. And I think we've especially seen that at home, especially with BJ Callahan. This time around it was completely different. RSL had the better of them, but I think what really sort of woke Nashville up a little bit was the goal that RSL scored. And I think that kind of was one of those, like, I don't want to say warning shots because there were warning shots before the goal, but it kind of added to this whole like, oh, okay, we got to start doing something, and this were able to connect on passes Nashville SC, and they weren't able to. They looked kind of it was looking to be one of those like just scrappy matches where it's going to have to be a set piece goal or something like that. And that's what ended up happening to get Nashville kind of out of that rut. But overall, I think if you were to give time for the other team to have a little bit of control of the match, you don't want it to be that early on, especially when you're playing at home. Because I think that gave, if another team had that moment, I think they could have added maybe one or two more goals to the goal that RSL scored. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. I just think that's probably the worst 20 minutes Nashville has played this season, except maybe the Red Bulls match.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I mean, you looked at it. I mean, it looked like Salt Lake had a plan to, break kind of the continuum that Nashville has had throughout this kind of first half and the dominance where they looked that they were going to play that counterattacking style and they were going to break those sidelines. I mean, I think one of the conversations that we do have to talk about, even though he was put in the MLS match day of the week, is Dan Lovitz was getting beat a lot on that left side in the first 20 minutes specifically. I think there was a lot of which obviously some of that led to the goal specifically from Salt Lake, where you're like, I put it in the Discord for this, and I'm like, well, I'm hoping they kind of, you know, they are able to come back in a different way. And it did wake them up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it is you can feel when a team is on the attacking edge, and you're just like, all right, they can just see out this little period, this ascendancy, and things will be a lot better. Things will settle down. Lovett's obviously, probably could have seen worse than a yellow card there early on, but it is worth remembering, like Lovett's being in this team isn't you know, because of his like just absolute stellar defensive prowess. Like Lovitz has been on the hook for a lot of Nashville SC goals over the years. Like that is one of the downsides of having Dan Lovitz is that occasionally he's going to let something through. I will say it is kind of funny, like rewatching some of the highlights before this started. Like the goal that they did score almost feels like a little fluky compared to the other chances in those first few matches,
Oh,
like
absolutely.
or
Yeah.
first few minutes. So, but it is like an important thing to remember. Like a lot of times when we came on this show last year, it was following a Dan Lovitz mistake that led to a goal. And that's not, I'm not just trying to bag on him. I'm just saying that is part of the bargain, right? Like is you play him in there defensively, there's going to be a few things that he gives up that maybe someone else wouldn't give up. But on the other side of it, he's a pretty good attacking player. And we've returned to this point a few times on this show the last few weeks, how involved Nashville's fullbacks have been. And Dan Lovitz was brought to Nashville to be an offensive force. And he has been exactly that. I don't know that he was brought to Nashville to score headers off corners, which he did against RSL, but that is another goal contribution from a Nashville SC fullback. And it is just that is the other side of it, right? He may give up a goal on the other end, but he's going to be involved in the comeback or going ahead in some of these games as well.
So one funny thing that BJ Callahan mentioned is that apparently Dan Lovitz has been asking them every week to be up to get the head to be a part of the set pieces so he can try to head the ball. So he's been asking them, and I guess they don't always use him in that aspect. I feel like after this goal, he might be one of the regulars up there. So
That's really fun. I mean, like, there's not many instances where Dan Lovitz is the star of the show where we have the ability to talk about Dan Lovitz for this amount of time. But there are a couple things in this match when it comes to where was he with that goal that was scored from RSL? He probably should have been there. Two, he probably should have had 2 yellow cards at one instance in the match, not just one red card specifically. 3, he probably should have been red carded on top of the yellow cards that have specifically happened. And then 5 minutes later, he then scores a goal from a header. His fourth, I believe, fourth career goal in MLS, like his MLS career.
third, I think for Nashville, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was his fourth in his MLS career specifically. He he had a first match to say the least, but I do think Clay is right. There's a lot of conversations when it comes to the involvement of the fullbacks into the attack specifically that we did not see a ton through Gary Smith's tenure. And I think Valera actually in the Discord specifically for the 615 soccer, you put a really cool statistic up about that contribution.
Yeah, so there's been more fullback contributions in the first 8 matches than full seasons for Nashville SC in the past. They're already at 7 goal contribution from fullbacks this season. That's about one per game, which is kind of an insane pace to be on because that means about 30 or so for the season. I don't think that's going to happen, obviously, but for example, the last season, 2024, there were 10 total throughout the whole season in all competitions. The season before, 15. So that's the most Nashville has had is in 15 goal contribution from fullbacks. So having guys like Lovitz and Nahar and even Bauer, right, to being involved is just another stream of goals that we've been asking for Nashville SC to have since pretty much inception.
Yeah. And I would say, like, the thing that was frustrating during the Gary's years were that they had fullbacks who could contribute in Alistair Johnston, Dan Lovitz. And the problem, which I'm someone who loves a fullback contributing, coming from supporting Everton for all those years. Like that's something that I always love to see is that it wasn't balanced. It would always be on one side or the other. So it was really shaded to Dan Levitz's side when Alistair Johnston or the number of players that tried to play on the other side before Shaq Moore were there. And then when Shaq Moore was there, then Lovitz kind of shifted away, and then it was really on Shaq Moore's side of the field. And this feels way more even, way more balanced going forward, and it looks that way too. It makes Nashville much, 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 much harder to defend against, in addition to other things. But knowing that you can progress the ball on both sides of the field and through the midfield kind of just changes everything about the way that this team can attack and can build chances going forward.
Before getting into the second half, you could tell the team was a little bit frustrated at the end of the first half, and some of that looked like it did boil up onto the field. And there was some conversations between Hani and Sam before getting into halftime. It seemed like people on the field were able to see. Me watching from a distance, they were kind of showing some of that, interaction between Sam and Hani. Do you think this is something to worry about when it comes to being frustrated in the future, or do you think this is something specifically that it's just, tempers flaring on the field? We're just trying to get the victory done.
Yeah, it's just normal, man. If you look at any sport at high level, the two best players on the team, the two best paid players on the teams, both miss pretty easy chances, one would say, especially the Hani Mukhtar one. I think there's just a lot of frustration there. And when you look at, these players are competitors. They're not here to play. They want the glory, they want the success. And when they can't get that, there's always going to be arguments. I would say maybe save that for the locker room type of thing. Maybe that's one way to go about it. But also, in all honesty, like it's kind of better to see that than not to see it in a way. Like I think at the end of the Gary Smith era there, I think Nashville lost that a little bit. Nashville is known as this like, what is they got the dog in them team, right? And then they just kind of went away for a little bit. So being able to recoup that, it has to do also with the expectation that Clay was talking about in the first segment of like Nashville is a team now that expects better of themselves. So do the fans. And with that raised expectations, this thing always comes up with Arsenal like every season or just in sports in general every season. Oh, does this guy not like this guy? Because it's like, no, they're like Steven, you and I have played soccer. We
I,
have yelled at each other
I
before
was
at the
just
soccer.
about to bring this up.
Like, like,
No, we don't yell
and
at each
that's
other in just soccer. We yell at each other playing FIFA, fake
right.
soccer. You know what I mean?
Like if we
Clubs
at
are
that
good.
level, at the rec soccer level or FIFA level, are getting to those sort of arguments, like I think the professional level, where their livelihood depends on it, they're allowed to have a little bit of an argument. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I do think you need to harness that. You need to harness that and have it positively impact the team. Obviously, it could reach a level where it's negatively impacting the team, but I just don't think Nashville SC is near that at all.
It would be a different scenario if this was a national team that created one or two big chances a game and was losing every week. Then you're sitting there going like, this has the potential for turning over. But this is a Nashville team that is putting up bags of chances every week, that is winning at an okay rate, that may improve and looks to improve as the season goes on. And these are two guys that have played in some pretty big teams and played in some pretty big leagues where it is way more competitive within the game, within the actual team, than it is in MLS. And so that is like nothing, like it, just absolutely nothing. I mean, I, on a different level, so I used to be a basketball manager in college, and I've been around college sports inside the locker room, for 15 years. I have seen players who are best friends with each other literally threaten to do great bodily harm and mean it, and then go to the bar the same night. So like it's just part of being that's part of being in a team, part of being in the locker room during a frustrating game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, they were able to kind of go into the locker room and figure it out in the second half and make the adjustments that needed to be done to try and push the tempo of that game, which I think they did a good job in. I think it was very interesting to see a Nashville team play better in the second half than the first half specifically. But I do believe that there is one player I specifically want to talk about, and that would be Jesse Palacios, center back that did play in time for Walker Zimmerman. He came in against Charlotte, was the sub there. First 12 minutes ever playing in MLS, kind of thrown into the mix specifically. I would say in the first half, the first 20 minutes, I would say he's kind of part of the problem when it came to kind of settling into the match. But man, when he settled in, there was a reason why this team was very high on him. And this is completely different than the other Colombian center back that we signed in our first instance of Major League Soccer.
Yeah, I think when you look at somebody like Palacios, he's unknown, but he has over 200 appearances, professional games, right? Like he might be unknown to us or to MLS folks in general, but this is a professional guy who is here to play. He's not here to just play second fiddle to Jack Mayer or Walker Zimmerman. And I think he saw his opportunity, and honestly, he didn't do. Not only did he not do anything to lose the opportunity, he played well enough to where he might have bought himself a couple more opportunities to be on the field. I don't think he's going to start over Walker Zimmerman. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that he played well enough to where now, if you see his name on the team sheet, you're not sort of have this big question mark. You're more comfortable seeing his name on the team sheet. So I think there's going to be opportunities for him to showcase himself. But I think what we learned after this game is that Walker Zimmerman, Jack Mayer, Jason Palacios is the order there in terms of center backs, and Josh Bauer is the fourth center back, but second right back. And I think BJ Callen talked about it after the game a little bit, and I do think that's kind of what's looking like where Nashville SC is at the moment.
Sweet. Good wrap up. Well,
Yep.
no. I still want to talk about. Okay, so I think we talked about kind of that Hani Sam thing and how that kind of turned over to the second half when the penalty did come in. A little bit of a weak penalty. Just a little bit. I think it's a penalty all day long, but definitely a weak penalty. But one of the things I did appreciate was Hani being in that captain role and handing the ball over to Sam Surridge to take the penalty, even though Sam has also missed a penalty, in the midst of this season. Hani, being the captain that he is, wanted to see that kind of transferred over to him, and he did a terrific job of taking that penalty. It was a scrappy win, but it was a win that was needed, and I think for Sam Surge as well, somebody that he kind of needed that confidence built up in him, because you're kind of starting to see a little bit of inconsistency that was starting to scare you. From your DP striker specifically.
Yeah, and they had decided Sam Surridge was going to take that penalty, but wanted to keep the other team guessing. We asked Sam Surridge about that afterwards, and he said it was just some gamemanship where Hani Mukhtar picked up the ball, held on to it. We've seen other teams do it throughout the world. So he said next time Hani might take it. He said he might take it. He said someone else on the team might take it. So they're keeping their cards close to their chest, as they should. And I think I would be surprised if Sam Surridge is not the next one to take the penalties. But also, Nashville SC might have the record number of penalties through the first 8 games of MLS. They've had 5, and that's way more than I ever remember anyone having. So just something to keep in mind.
Well, it was bound to happen at some point when the guy who runs your club is the former Liverpool CEO. You just start getting a whole bunch of
Wow.
undeserved
You
penalties.
would do that, man. Really? Jeez.
I do think I want to touch on Walker Zimmerman, Jacob Schaffelberg and Jonathan Perez coming in and changing things up a little bit. Nashville were creating before the substitution, but I think Ahmed Qasim was running a little tired. I mean, he's been playing a lot of minutes, and I thought Yazbek coming in as well and kind of playing 2 different positions. I thought all the substitutions were good, and I thought Schaffelberg especially looked really, really good. But I think we're starting to see what a team with depth looks like, to where your substitutions are not are not causing your team to go down a level. As a matter of fact, might even cause your team to go up a level. And I think that's something Nashville SC. How many times have we talked about this, where there's just no one else to bring on that would challenge these wingers or strikers or whatever, to where now you're looking at Jacob Schaffelberg at Canadian International and Johnny Perez, who is a young and coming player, coming in off your bench to replace Muyl and Qasim, who are by themselves having great seasons as well. So I just think it's a really, really sort of important point for the depth for Nashville SC, not only in defense but also in attack.
And where that puts Nashville in currently, I mean, we are now 8 matches into the season. There's only one team that hasn't played their eighth match, and that's Inter Miami. Currently in 6th place, 13 points in off of 8 matches, kind of right in between. Philadelphia's in 5th, Orlando, and we're tied with Philadelphia, Orlando, and City in 7th. Currently in that lower playoff spot. 8 games in. Is this where you expected Nashville to be? Or is this not where you expected Nashville to be?
I mean, I think we were all pretty high. This is a Nashville SC show. I think we expected Nashville to be in there competing, maybe turning some heads, being a better team than some folks expected, and I think that's right where they are. What I will say is I didn't expect Nashville to be this advanced on what they were doing on the field. I think results-wise, they're about where I was hoping they would be. On the field, they are well past where I thought they would be. They are playing exceptionally well and way better than I would have expected this early on.
Blair?
Oh, I thought you meant like you cut it off after Clay's point. But anyway, Nashville SC, yeah, I think it's a little bit higher than I expected, in all honesty. I thought they'll be fighting for that 8th and 9th position. It's too early to look at the table anyway. But yeah, to me, it was like 8, 9, maybe fighting for those spots rather than being in the 6th spot. But currently, it's a point separating those two positions. So that's why I think it's too early to look at the table. But I do think generally they are exceeding my expectations.
And we'll be back to talk about Seattle, as well as some other MLS news. And we'll do that next right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer. And we are back right here on Pharmaceutical Soccer, again, at PharmaSoccer on our Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, 615soccer.com, as well as pharmasoccer.com to check stuff out. Are we missing somebody?
Yeah, so Valère stepped away. And the reason he stepped away is he's currently throwing up in the bathroom because he had talked so positively about Arsenal when in his heart of hearts, he believes they're going to lose 4-0 to Real Madrid on Wednesday. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But it's all for show. He doesn't believe in Arsenal. He never has. He never will. And, I think you should hold it against him next week if Arsenal do lose to Real Madrid, his lack of faith in Arsenal. It's pretty upsetting. And I say this as an Everton fan whose team's been utterly terrible for most of the last 3 years.
I mean, it is true. This is probably the most in one show that he's brought it up. It's probably because of the fact that he's absolutely overcompensating for the fact that he knows they are not going to win. But, I guess, Valère, I'm sorry you can't be on the last part of our show because of that. I mean, we're a Nashville Soccer show, but it's fine. I still love you anyways. Valère will not be here for this 3rd segment. But a couple other things to talk about. I think one of the first things that we should talk about before just talking about kind of different scores, one of the big things is that there was an owners meeting specifically when it came to the proposed winter spring schedule that was going to become to fruition to have a conversation about. It does look like that has been tabled until 2027. I know I'm happy about it, but
I think it's all nonsense.
What do you mean? What do you mean all nonsense?
So, one, no one found out about this until the day it was going to be voted on, when Sports Business Journal dropped it, right? What was going on this time last week? Oh, Gianni Infantino was just going around to a bunch of MLS clubs, checking out their facilities all last week. The FIFA president was coming around. And then suddenly they're having a vote over the winter schedule that no one knows about, this possible momentous change out of nowhere that they're just going to just vote on out of nothing. Come on. Come on. That was never real. That was never real. I mean, they can say it was, and I know that they've lightly like said, "Oh, we'll look into it," but they've never seriously discussed it. USL has, and
Yeah,
I'll
that's
give them credit.
fair.
USL has, but MLS has never seriously discussed that as a proposition, especially considering that there are MLS clubs that play in NFL stadiums that play during the fall, in the winter, and so like I was just like, I saw that come out and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Why would they vote on that? And why would they not tell anyone that they're about to vote on it? And then I was like, oh, yeah. Infantino was at Nashville last week. He's at Cincinnati today. Or he was at Nashville on the day that, the day after this was announced. And then he was at Cincinnati. And prior to that, he was at Charlotte. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
So
I didn't
it's a little
think
bit of a show
right,
for
and
the FIFA president.
I think we've talked about it on here. Well, Valair is extremely for it. I did never thought it was viable specifically to even be able to have happen, which I'm kind of with you that why would the discussion be even happening? I don't think it's even viable at all. I did not make the interchange whatever whatever it's called, the correlation between Infantino being around and that vote happening. I did not even think about that. So that's kind of funny. But yay, now we can know
Yeah.
that there are no discussions happening with that until 2027.
Look, we're not aware of anything of what's going on in these owners' meetings, but it did seem a little bit on the nose to not connect the two. So I there is something I will say this. There's something to be said for being on the international soccer calendar. But do you know who also plays at the same time MLS does? Brazil. Does
Right.
anyone think Brazil's not a serious soccer country? Brazil? So like I just I think it's just a lot of talk because it's another topic that people can hit MLS on online, and there are some upsides to potentially moving to that calendar just from a logistical standpoint, and for a league that is based so much on in-person attendance, knocking out the viability of in-person attendance for a number of teams just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it never has. And so there would have to be a lot of changes in order to accommodate such a schedule. And if it's coming, it will come with way more than a day's notice on a vote.
My only thought when it comes to the winter, like the winter spring schedule, is Minnesota United. Like, can you imagine just any sort of home matches happening for Minnesota United in that winter timeline when it's negative 20 degrees out? No, that I don't know. We'll find out. But anyways, nothing to worry about until 2027. MLS is weird. It was a weird week of matches to say the least. I mean, I still don't get Vancouver. How are they so good? I don't get it. Brian White scoring 4 goals last week. Columbus is really good, top of the East at the current moment. Was there any scores or anything that stood out to you specifically, Clay?
I mean, Vancouver is the biggest story in the league right now. I mean, not to belabor the point, but they are doing what they're doing both in Champions League and in the league, which is hard to do. I mean, it's hard to keep winning at both at the same time.
Well, yeah,
We joke about teams in Champions League being terrible for the first 2 months of the season
one
pretty
thousand percent.
regularly.
Yeah,
So it is, yeah, it's really, really impressive. Uh, and I talked about it last week, but it's a really good advertisement for what bringing more people, more new voices, more new perspectives into a league can do for your league.
absolutely. And one of the teams that Vancouver has beaten would be the Seattle Sounders, who we do play on Saturday in Seattle. Is this is the first time that we've played in Seattle since our first ever away match, correct?
It wasn't the first away match. It was it was the second season.
Second season, first match of the second season. That's correct.
Yeah, yeah, because we were all there.
Yes, we were, and it was a
We were all
0
there, and it was a win. Was Valera there? Valera might not have been there.
No, Valer had to be there. I feel like
Either
Valer was
way, it
there.
was a win. It was a rare Pharma Road win with
Maybe
a
Valer
Godoy winner.
wasn't there.
Yeah, okay.
Interesting. I didn't even think about that. But Seattle, always good. Seattle is always fun. If you have the ability to make the trip up there this weekend, I would go. Go to Seattle is always a fun experience. Seattle not doing so hot this season at the current moment in comparison to other seasons, but Seattle is always one of those teams that kind of starts off slow in the beginning and then always turns it up in the playoffs and at the end of the season. Uh, what do you think, Clay? Is this a team that we're hoping is still kind of on that negative downturn before they start really picking it up at the end of the season? Maybe we can catch them now.
I mean, this would be around the time that they would warm up. They're out of Champions League now. They have like really a classic MLS regular season sort of start here, where they beat the brakes off LAFC 5-2 early on, and then got smoked by San Diego a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And so it's like, well, which one of these teams is the real one? And they haven't really giving you a lot to think about, honestly, in terms of like where they actually are. I mean, if you look at historically, you're going to say, okay, this will be one of the best teams in the league, certainly one of the best teams in the West, one of the worst places to go to try and expect getting a result. Obviously, going to the West Coast is always difficult. Nashville's done it before and gotten a win. Uh, I don't know. It's another really good test. It like Nashville's got a bit of a gauntlet here the last month or so of really proving itself. We don't know where Seattle is, but we know where Seattle's supposed to be.
Right.
And so Nashville going away to Charlotte, playing well but not winning, uh, losing at the last minute to FC Cincinnati, but getting the win against RSL, which is not a bad win, and now going to Seattle, it's just another chance to lay down a marker. And I think that if Nashville goes out there, puts in a good performance, even if they just get like a draw, they're really setting themselves up for whenever they get against teams that are going to be outmatched by Nashville. They can really kind of turn the Jets on entering the summer and put some distance between them and potentially not even having to worry about the playoffs by the time the end of the summer rolls around. So it's I know that's the least interesting way to do a preview, but it is it's like, well, I don't know what to expect. And that's what you have to say about MLS at this point in the season. That's what a lot of teams are saying right now about Nashville SC.
Right.
They're sitting there going, I guess they're good. We'll find out. And I think that that's the way that a lot of people are looking at NSC right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting of what team you get. I mean, have we had road trips this season? Of course, but we haven't made the trek to Seattle yet this year, which is a lot farther than say going to Red Bull specifically. Takes a little bit more out of a team, especially as we talked about fatigue itself. Like and not having Walker Zimmerman per se, we don't necessarily know what Nashville is going to play like in this kind of environment, especially in Seattle. And again, like Clay said, we don't know what Seattle are we going to get? um, so I'm very curious by this match as well. The timing of this match is actually very interesting too. I believe it's a 6:30 kickoff in Nashville, which means it's a 4:30 kickoff in Seattle. Uh, Clay, why don't you just give me your predictions and plugs?
For my plugs, follow me at Clay Lasol on Twitter and Instagram, and you can check out Nashville Soccer Archive. And then I don't know. It's a tough one to expect to win out of. So I'm going to go. I think Seattle. I think Seattle makes Nashville work for it, but it ends up a 1-1 draw. I think that we're going to see something special from Hani for one of the goals, and then Seattle will get a goal. They'll work their ways to a goal. They'll whether that's gradually just battening down the hatches and finding something, but I think it'll be a 1-1 draw.
I mean, I think that's a good prediction. I think I was going around that way, which by the way, at PH Steven HD on all of my socials and everything. So please make sure you check that out. I think I'm gonna go. I think 2-2 draw. I think I'm gonna go with, and I think Jacob Schaffelberg is gonna get his first goal this season. And I also think Eddie Tagseth is going to get his first goal of the season as well. So I'm going to go with both of those guys getting those
If you
goals.
say it enough, it will happen.
Exactly. Also at Valer Shabilla, he wanted you guys to know that he predicts a 7-0 win for Seattle specifically. Currently has no faith in
Very
this team.
upsetting.
He's kind of ridiculous, actually. I don't actually. How is he allowed in the press box if he's just going to hate on our team so much?
It is weird. And now that we're just seeing like his backdrop, I can't help but be drawn to the fact that there's Columbus on there,
I
there's
know.
Cincinnati on there,
There's a Cincinnati scarf on
there's
his.
Louisville on there.
It's,
I mean, the saving grace is the Evansville scarf. But I mean, how many people who we don't like are going to be on that back wall?
apparently everybody. Thank you so much again for listening to the show. We really do appreciate you being here. We'll be back next week to talk about the Seattle match. Hopefully, talking about another victory and being proved wrong by all three of us. And we'll do that next week. At Pharma Soccer again, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your week.